Welcome, everybody. Today, we are going to be talking about what is a misfit. And we are a group of practitioners that are forming a community called the Weird and the Wise. And we wanted to talk about misfits because speaking for myself, I feel like I've been a misfit all my life. But what does that actually mean? And what does that mean for us? And so we're going to just start talking about it.
Yeah, can we throw out our acronym to start too?
Well,
Is that
please,
yeah.
yes.
So as we were talking about this community and things, we came up with this for Misfit to be a mystical, intuitive, sensitive, futurist, indigo tree hugger. And I really love, I'm going to jump in on that last one too. I just love that idea of it has a little bit of a levity to it, right? But really what it's saying is, grounded to the earth, that we recognize that we're all a part of this community. We're all in this planet together, hurtling through space. And that there's this idea of taking care of this home and connecting to literally to our roots and to that groundedness. How can we bring in that mystical and ground that in the real world in the ways that we show up and the ways that we move through it? So I love that one.
I do too. And I want to also express, when I actually hug a tree, I can feel it, and I can feel the love and the knowledge and the wisdom from the tree. And that when I think of tree hugger, I think of that as well. And yeah, it gets me very excited. So I'm glad that that word is in there as well.
It takes me to just the imagery of how connected trees are and how, the intention of building a community being with, to really touch that place that we're not here alone. And when one of the trees needs, more sugar, more energy, we connect. We don't go into isolation. They need each other. We need each other, and it brings out the hippie in me as well, so I love that aspect too.
I
Absolutely.
feel like I have to share too that we've certainly been on walks, Cassie, you and me, where we've had to stop and commune with the trees.
Totally, totally, trees are my jam.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So it's like a practice. What other words, what stands out to you, Stephanie?
Sensitive.
Mm.
Sensitive stands out to me because my entire life I've been told I was too sensitive, and maybe not my entire life, but my entire early life. And it was always a source of shame for me. Like, oh, I'm too sensitive. I need to harden up. I need a tougher skin, is what I kept getting told, and it wasn't until I began my own spiritual practice and began to meet people like Tim, like Cassie, that and explored the idea that sensitive is nothing to be ashamed of. Sensitive, although it may not fit into the way that the world is right now, as far as society and all of that, it's a gift. And it means so much more than just needing to harden my shell. It means quite the opposite. I feel so fully and completely that I can open my heart. I can let other people in. I can put myself in other people's shoes and a little empathy. And I don't know, I love now saying that I am a highly sensitive person. It's like it's a badge of honor for me.
I love
Yeah,
that too. Oh,
yeah.
yeah, please,
No, go
guys.
ahead, Jen.
Just thinking about how we do grow up in a world, even thinking as a man that I grow up in a world where it's not encouraged to talk about our feelings. There are these ideas of machismo or all of these cliches you hear growing up. Big boys don't cry, things like that, where it's been a journey to see that as a gift. And then even moving more into the empathic part of the sensitive or the mystical part of it, that there are so many things going on around us that we feel, and we don't always have a language to talk about them because they're not in that normal paradigm or that normal construct. So, yeah, it's like it's been a little bit of a journey to not see that as something that's not desirable, and more it's like, no, it's feeling, it's connecting, it's being in tune, and also having the tools to be able to navigate that, because that's not always easy in this overstimulating world. Like, what kinds of things can we do? And I think that's hopefully some of what we bring into this group too, is how do we ground? How do we know our boundaries? How do we talk about the things we're experiencing, give them
Mm.
space, all of that.
And how do we not feel so alone? Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, we put the being sensitive in the same file folder sometimes as something is wrong,
Mhm.
instead of it being actually one of our biggest gifts. We feel the world deeply, we love deeply, we care deeply, we um, also get hurt very deeply. And all of those things, really mess with our nervous systems and how we continue to function. And yeah, I remember one time seeing a post or something that said, our sensitivity is our divinity. And how
Mm.
that really came back to this, like, if we didn't have to protect ourselves and we weren't trying to be something other than who we are, um, that it's beautiful. Our sensitivity is really a beautiful thing. And especially like in the highly sensitive person work that Elaine Aron did, she really gives all this permission around only 20% of humanity really falls into the highly sensitive category. And we need to find the other highly sensitive people, because then we can have these conversations like, I can't go there. I literally can't go there because I get too overstimulated, or, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and just be kind that, I need to sit in a dark room sometimes for hours. I need alone time. Like these things that I need to drive my own car, these things that we've made wrong that are actually just us deeply caring for us.
Mm, that's so beautiful. And I think that's one of the reasons why I feel so passionate about creating a community like this, because it's something I wish I would have had way earlier than I
Yeah.
did, and I'm still hungry for it, still hungry for it.
Yeah.
So I wish I had a wheel like that with all the labels on it so I could spin it and we could see what the next word we're going to talk about is. But in the absence of doing that, I'm wondering what comes up around. I have a curiosity about futurist.
And me
How
too.
do you
That was
both
what I
relate
was
to
going to
that?
suggest.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, for me, when I think of futurist, this is another, I mean, they all just really pop for me, but futurist for me is like visioning what's happening, envisioning a future, a new world, moving towards something rather than getting caught in what is. Not to say that, being grounded and knowing, what this moment is holding, but also being able to say, okay, this is really hard right now and I'm feeling it. And I also know that as I feel this, it's going to bring me into a new space and it's going to, bring space available for what's next. And we can call in what's next and we can get creative and imaginative about what the future holds. And so that for me, in a very small nutshell, is what a futurist means.
I love that. So anything come up for you, Cassie?
Well, I believe that neurodivergent people are innovators. And I believe that our brains work very differently for a reason. And that reason is that we are here to create a new earth. We came in wired very differently, so that we can look at these things that haven't been working for a really long time and go, oh, I know how to solve that problem. I know what we can do, to shift the energy around that. And I want to help people step into the innovator that they are, because I do believe that the future really requires a level of heart and a level of multi-dimensionality that we are really missing in this culture. And I believe it comes from sensitive, neurodivergent people that are walking into their purpose and their calling.
Yes.
I love
Amen.
that. Yeah, I think I'm just relating to it almost from that individual perspective too, of just forward facing, just allowing ourselves to step into these new ways of being. And sometimes I think about that in when we think about the subconscious wanting to keep us safe. When we step into something new, it feels dangerous because the subconscious doesn't know if we can survive it. But what are the tools for stepping into that future? And like for me, one of them is like, how can I be more comfortable with my discomfort?
Mm.
Yeah, the nervous system will always choose
Mhm.
that familiar hell versus the unfamiliar heaven. And as we know in the hero's journey across all space and time, we need allies to cross that threshold.
Yeah.
We need each other. We need to know like someone is cheering me on. Someone has my back. There are other people doing, this level of work, whatever it is.
Right. And I love how you talked about leaning into discomfort, Tim, because and there are ways we can work with that. So it may be uncomfortable, but it's not unbearable. And it's not something that will have us backtrack and walk away from the new.
All right, so I'm going to spin the imaginary wheel again.
Yeah.
How about indigo?
I'll go. I don't have a whole lot to say about indigo except that when I hear the word indigo, I think of indigo children, indigo people, people who are specifically here because of the changing, the evolving, the evolution that's happening on the planet, the um, the transformation happening with us, an evolution, a consciousness evolution, but also the earth that's changing too, and indigo is here to help. And this is what I think. And indigo is here to help move that along.
What about you, Tim?
Same. I think for me it almost just represents a curiosity. That idea, like we do hear about these different waves of people coming in as we're shifting into this new earth or whatever, and that people coming online in different ways. I don't know how to say that, but when I hear that word, I kind of think of that as being one of the waves.
Mm.
These people that are coming into the world with these incredible talents and insights and um, new ways of being and all of that. And so for me, just the way I relate to that word is kind of almost encompassing that idea that we are
Mhm.
here at this point in time for a particular reason. And we may not always know what that is, but this unfolding process of discovering that and then finding the people that that resonates with so that we can discover that together or define that together. So, yeah. You, Cassie?
Yeah, I remember when I read about indigo children, a decade or so ago, and I just instantly was like, "Oh, I am one of those." Like that
Mhm.
is, and I think there was more hype around that word. There has been more hype, in the 80s and 90s and probably even 2000s. Um, but they were just looking at all of us that, now they're calling ADHD or neurodivergent or autistic or whatever it is. And this was a term that came before all of those things. Like, who are these children? Like, they are not like the rest of the children, you know? And I think that that term really embodies the old soul aspect of coming in for harmony. Like we're here for a level of harmony and for unity. And like the divisiveness and the way that this planet is set up has been very painful in that way, because in our soul and our essence, we really want, we want community. We want to be in this greater harmony where we're working with each other and the planet in a way that brings life. and not take from.
Yeah. And really bringing in the frequency of love, like walking
Uh,
that on and into the planet.
totally.
One last thought for me before I spin the metaphorical wheel again, is just that idea of, we have access to so many things now, and sometimes the algorithms and the bubbles that we live in create problems, but also I think it also opens up people to the possibilities of these different ways of being and these really talented kids that are coming into the world. I have seen so many videos of kids that are like 10 or 11 years old doing things that don't make sense from a 3D world kind of perspective, connecting to soulful music and just having access to information that it doesn't seem like, yeah, it's just hard to comprehend. And when we think about that knowing field or that collective consciousness or um, the hill, speaking of, I know there are a number of topics that have come up already. There will probably be future conversations. I heard the hero's journey in there. I so want to dive into that. And this field of knowing, we want to talk about the telepathy tapes and how that's going viral and opening people up to new understandings. Um, but yeah, just that maybe that recognition, and I hear that in the word indigo, that recognition that that is happening. We just don't have a construct to be able to talk about it as openly and freely as we would like. And so the more we have these kinds of conversations, maybe the more it's almost that hundredth monkey kind of thing where we can start to allow the collective consciousness to open up to something new.
Mm.
And so as I spin that wheel, that leads me to mystical. What comes up for you all?
When I think of mystic or mystical, I mean, I think of mystic, and that's someone who has this inner wisdom and is tapped into that inner wisdom, and it's a version of viewing the world that is not as we have been told to view the world. So, and looking out into nature as a way to inform us, as symbology of being very connected to the inner divinity rather than looking outside for divinity. Yeah, and magical. That's what I think of.
I really resonate with this word because of just my own personal journey of having, gone to college and became a clinical therapist. And like none of it was really fulfilling for me. Like I just kind of felt like this is not my path. And so I kept, touching places that didn't make a lot of sense and then following the next breadcrumb to the next thing. And then I started, doing more meditation and, and things just kept opening. And then I read somewhere about the path of the mystic. And I was like, oh, this is what's happening for me. Like nothing is making sense, yet everything is making sense. Everything has a timing and everything has a way of magic if we just shift our perspective to, that we are connected, like you said, Stephanie, and there's symbology in everything, and the universe is in co-creation, and the planet is in co-creation, and wow, does that make existence way more fulfilling um and the word's not coming, but I see it as like I guess a width and a depth and it does make me feel like I can drop in and be connected to, all of the goddesses, the mystics in our history, and bring them into present time also.
Mm.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
I just had looked up the definition, and one that I came across is states of deep unity, oneness, or enlightenment. And I think how I relate to it too is just when we can step outside of what we just accept as normal, commonplace living reality and really look at it with a child's eyes, or see it as new, everything is mystical and connected and oneness and deep unity. And it's a magical world that we're living in. And it doesn't have to be at odds with the science that describes it. Like when we really get into quantum things, or, uh, the subconscious and how our minds work and how infinitely complex they are. There's some pretty magical things going on there. And so, like, can we, for me, it's that idea of, can we tie in the mystical and the metaphysical and these ideas of, um, the complexity of life and experience and consciousness? Can we tie that into, allowing the science and the method and the tools and the things that can help us along to be magical too, even if we can describe them, that it doesn't make them any less amazing in different ways. So yeah, kind of relating in that sense. And that brings us to our last letter of the day, which which is intuitive. And I love that we did it out of order too. Kind of,
Yeah, of course we did.
Orbiting, we're orbiters.
yeah, that's what we do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll go, since I've been going, I'll go next or first. And intuitive for me, I believe, I feel that we all have intuition. That is, it is a gift that we all harbor inside of us that just hasn't necessarily been nourished. And we're beginning to understand that maybe the 20% of the sensitive people, or maybe even more, the intuitive is turning on. And I think more so now than ever. And just for me personally, cultivating that intuition and that inner knowing inside has been really, really fun and really affirming for me, and knowing that I've had it for so long and I just didn't give it the credit that it was due. So intuition, intuitive. Yeah.
How about
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
Wanna go, Tim?
Oh, no, I'd love for you to go, Cassie. Thank you.
This word. I feel it, of course, dimensionally. I feel it as like a as a we all are intuitive. Um, and it's very unique to all of us. And I feel like it's something that nobody can tell us how we are. It's like we're constantly learning who we are and how we work. And some of us are, it's just like I take it back to like we're different kind of learners, you know. Some of us are audio, some of us are visual, some of us are kinesthetic. And like our intuitive self picks up and is in communication with everything around us. Um, but sometimes we miss it because it lives in the subtleties of the world, and how it takes a learning, an openness, a willingness to learn that part of yourself, to slow down enough to be like, oh, I am having this experience, you know, or I've had this song just pop in my head. I wonder what that means. Or, oh, this animal just, you know, so we start learning and working with things as intuitively, I think of it as like being a weaver, like we become this weaver of information um, that we have access to self and self to world. I hope that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Totally
Absolutely.
orbiting.
No, I love it. I don't even really know how to answer this, which is, it's funny because that's the word that probably stands out the most for me, that I resonate, just that idea of what is intuition. And it's that all of this information is around us all the time. And in that sense, like, what do we choose to focus on? What do we give a language to? What do we give priority to in our mind as it's filtering things out in our day to day? And so I almost see that word as, I like that we ended with it because it's ties in all of the other things. It's like when we're really in touch with what's happening around us, it becomes very mystical. When we're receiving that information, we can become very sensitive. If we're working with it in a certain way, we can kind of envision a future or a different way of being. And recognizing people, the Indigo word, people are coming into the world with more and more of that sense, more of that recognition that there are things that are more important than what we've been doing, and want to move us in new directions or show us new ways of being. And then rooting it in with the tree hugging and just how do we, it's like when we're really connected to the earth and we recognize our unity and our groundedness, then we can start to bring those things in and make them into real actionable physical ways of being in the world.
It touches that, like we were taught that we have five senses, and the sixth one makes us see ghosts. So we don't want to go past there. Yet, those of us that have heightened sense of many different things, we need help sometimes really understanding that there's actually like over 30 senses. I think they've
Mm-hmm.
came to now. And um, but when we're living in an overstimulating world, sometimes we need help like reconnecting to what that means. And so I just wanted to add that piece because I think a lot of like the children and probably us, right? But when we were outside more, we were with nature more, um, got to experience just the intuitive calling, like, oh, I'm riding my bike. Oh, my body wants to take a left here. I'm going to take a left here. We had a lot more space to learn that intuitive part of us, in a different way. So I just want to mention it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the question is, are you a misfit? And do you feel called to, create community and to be a part of this new misfit world? And if so, connect with us, and let's go on this journey together.
Mm.
Thank you.